On Thursday, Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, along with their retinues and thousands of journalists, descended on Vietnam's capital for their bilateral summit. The much-hyped talks failed to produce any deal on North Korea's denuclearization and the lifting of U.S. sanctions against Pyongyang, with Trump and Kim unable to agree on the terms. Despite little headway, Washington and Pyongyang say dialogue will continue. And as an apparent goodwill gesture, the US and South Korea are suspending their annual joint military exercises. The Pentagon says it's to reduce tension and advance denuclearization on the Korean peninsula. However, the drills have not in fact been cancelled, but rather replaced by another set of exercises. RT's Caleb Maupin takes stock of the second Trump-Kim summit.
The talks in Hanoi between Trump and Kim were a complete failure, a blowout, a bomb. Trump says the talks failed because of what he says were unreasonable demands.
They wanted the sanctions lifted in their entirety, and we couldn't do that.
But that is not how North Korea remembers the meeting.
What we proposed wasn't the removal of all sanctions, but their partial removal. We proposed to the United States to lift articles of sanctions that impede the civilian economy and the livelihood of our people.
So, with conflicting information about what actually took place at the meeting between the two leaders, we've now got the U.S. State Department issuing an explanation of the explanation. After the talks flopped in Hanoi, Trump jumped on a plane to Alaska. He was certainly not singing a song of peace as he praised the troops.
America does not seek conflict, but if we are forced to defend ourselves, we will fight and we will win in an overwhelming fashion. You are a powerful warning to the world to never strike American soil. You are a warning that everybody knows about and nobody wants to play with.
You would think that with the utter train wreck that was the talks with Pyongyang, that Donald Trump would be cruising for a bruising when he got back to the United States. However, that doesn't seem to be the case. The epic failure seems to have been met with pretty broad approval. Both Democrats and Republicans seemed rather chipper about it.
It's good that the president did not give him anything for the little that he was proposing.
If the North Koreans walk away thinking, you know, they've won, and gradually they will see their sanctions regime begin to erode, then they've won, and frankly, that would be unfortunate.
It was smart to expose the North Korean delegation to the kind of economic prosperity that could be possible.
It's a good thing that he walked away rather than agreeing to something that was badly flawed.
Democratic presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard seemed to stand alone in voicing disappointment.
Kim Jong-un has clearly stated that he is holding on to these nuclear weapons as his only deterrent against the United States coming in and waging a regime change war in North Korea. So while, I'm deeply concerned about the fact that this summit yesterday ended without an agreement, it's not surprising because of this policy, this regime change war policy.
Mike Pompeo laid out the Washington consensus with rather sharp terminology.
America has a responsibility to protect itself by pushing back against those evil nations and those evil leaders who intend to do real harm to the world.
Yes, much like George W. Bush with his rhetoric about evildoers, Donald Trump is not setting himself up to win a Nobel Peace Prize anytime soon. But most of the political establishment that normally hates Donald Trump seems to think that that's A-OK. Caleb Maupin, RT, New York.
Political experts told us the Trump administration's hawkish stance elsewhere ends up eroding North Korea's trust in White House promises.
It was not no deal versus bad deal. It was a missed opportunity. And the real question remains what was it that caused President Trump or Chairman Kim, for that matter, to stand up and walk away an hour and a half early? I think there's a crisis in confidence between North Korea and the U.S. Kim knows what's going on in the world, and he looks around and he sees, unfortunately and depressingly, a United States that simply doesn't keep its word around the world.
Trump is trying to show success. And that, I think, was one of the considerations in the discussions in Vietnam over North Korean missiles. The reality is that Trump is looking to make a deal and to show international success, and to so that he can have something to come back to and to offset the turmoil the political turmoil he's facing back home. But if we've taken over ISIS in Syria, then the question remains, what about the troops, U.S. troops who are there in Syria? What will happen with them? Those are questions that remain unanswered.
Back at home, veering off script,